What is the biggest fear for a woman in the nail industry? That's right, having a baby or something happening to you, which means that you can't work with your hands, which means bye income. And I'm sure that if you're in the nail industry, and especially if you're working by yourself or you just have one or two staff members, this is something that you've definitely thought about. And whether, is your business actually profitable or not? Or maybe you're in like this race where you're stuck in the operational side of things and you're just not even sure, am I making money or am I making an illusion that I'm making money and I'm just doing everything yourself? Because I have been in both of these scenarios, especially at the very start. When I first started, I worked for myself and it seemed like I was making so much money, but I didn't really know how to correctly calculate numbers, and I was just doing a lot of things, technically speaking, for free. When I hired my first staff member, I was like, oh my God, where is all of my money? Because all of a sudden I had to start paying other people to do all these things because I did not have enough time to do everything. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? Since then, I've been in the nail industry for many years now, and my salon has been operating for 6 or 7, I think it's 7 years now. I should probably keep track of that, but it's been a long time now. And I have tried a lot of different things. I've tried lots of different models, I've tried lots of different systems, and I have finally been able to find a way of raising our sales to $90,000 just last month, all with a baby at home with my little 1-year-old. So what I wanted to do in this video today is give you very practical steps of what I personally did in order to grow my salon, grow my turnover, and also, of course, grow my profit, all while having a baby and a family and everything like that. So I'm not like constantly in the salon doing something. So here, I'm not going to teach you anything. I'm not going to teach you anything about nails. I'm going to help you and guide you so that you start thinking like a business owner. And this is going to be relevant for you whether you're just doing nails by yourself, or if you already have some team members, or if you have a full salon. Because sometimes even when you have a big salon, you may not always necessarily have all your processes and numbers correct. So it may seem like everything's kind of working, but at the end of the day, you're not getting the amount that you actually want to be getting out of your business. Now, the thing is, life is going to slow you down one way or another one day. Whether it's having kids, pregnancy, burnout, health, or age, inevitably we're going to get to a point where we can't be 90 years old and like, what color would you like, we're gonna do an almond or a square today. Like, you're just not going to be able to do that, and that's not going to be very interesting for you, even if you physically are able to do that. So we need to make sure that we prepare our business in a way that is able to accommodate your life, your family, and your growth in the future. So basically, you just need to take some very important steps. And there are 4 main steps that I want to tell you about that I personally took. Now, the 4 steps that you absolutely have to take before you can grow your business are plan, numbers, systems, expansion. What does that all mean? Let's dive in and have a look exactly what I did to get to the results that I got last month. And I'm not here to brag about, oh, I got this. It doesn't matter the number. What matters is the fact that I have a business. I have grown a business that I can rely on, that I can know that, emotionally, especially as a woman, this is really important for me to have that stability, that I know if my business is making this much money, it means that my profit is this much, which means that I know that no matter what I'm doing, my business is bringing me that money in, and I'm covering whatever expenses that I have from this business. So this is just that peace of mind that I think is so important for any woman to have. So let's go back to step 1, right? The important thing about planning is you don't want to get to a situation where you're like, uh-oh, something's happened and what do I do now? I have no idea what's happening. And then you're in that panic mode where you're like, what do I do here? What do I do there? And it's all not working, because when you're in that panic mode, nothing is going to work right and you're not going to be making very clear decisions. So you want to be able to give yourself time. You want to be able to have that ability to, plan in advance. So for example, even if you're just considering sometime, in a year, 2, 3, maybe sometime in the future to have kids or have some kind of changes in your life, I would definitely recommend you sitting down. Oh, actually, let me take that back. If you don't plan on working as a nail tech or working with your hands or physically managing your salon, being like, the admin, the cleaner, the everything, if you don't plan on doing that and you want to create a business that ends up being like a passive income, or more or less, right? This video is definitely going to be for you. So plan before we do anything else. We think, okay, what's going to happen if I do this? Or what's going to happen if I do that? And the number one thing that you need to ask yourself right now is, what happens if for whatever reason I can't work at all for 6 to 12 months? Is my business currently ready for that? Is my income structure currently ready for that? Have I got, savings, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going to go into that, but let's just talk about the business side of things. So if you can't physically go into work, do admin work, do filing, whatever you're doing, if you can't do that, like that's it, stop. As of today, right now, there's no warning, you just can't work anymore. Are you going to be okay? And if that answer is no, or even if you're like, ooh, I'm not sure, the next thing is going to be very, very important for you. Now, the first thing that absolutely changes everything is once you start speaking the language of a business. Again, even if it's just you by yourself, you need to start speaking numbers. So you don't actually need to know numbers. You don't have to be really, really good at counting, everything like that. You don't need that. You don't have to be good at numbers. You just need to understand them. You need to understand what's actually happening with your business, because if you don't have numbers, you can't make any decisions, because sometimes it may feel like everything's okay, but it's actually not. So numbers are going to tell you absolutely everything. And with the use of numbers and even really, really basic planning, basic calculators, we can sort of do really, really good quality predictions of what we need to be doing in the future. For example, I want to show you a little quick calculation of just how one tiny little change can make a huge, huge difference on your business. So for example, you want to see, like, we're going to have a look at how the cost of an administrator changes when you have 1 technician, or when you have 3 technicians, or when you have 8 technicians, and nothing else changes, right? So we have a look at how this happens, and we need to see what's going to happen if I change the number of staff I have, what's going to happen if I change the number of workstations I have. So all of these different things we can actually predict very, very easily on an Excel spreadsheet before we do any changes. So you don't need to go in and invest or do any fancy courses on marketing or things like that. You just need to learn how to structure your business, how to process numbers, how to understand them, and how, by looking at some simple numbers, you can make very, very real changes that make an almost instant impact on your business and on your profits at the end of the day. So come on over, I want to show you exactly what we can do with our numbers. And I want to show you the exact difference between 1 technician with an admin and, say, for example, a small salon with just 2 or 3 technicians working at a time and 8 technicians working at a time. Okay, so for example, let's take that we have an 8-hour day, hour and a half service time, which means it's 1 person that's doing 5 services per day. $150 service price, which means the capacity is 150 times 5, which is 750. We take away, I'm going to do very, very simple numbers. We take away 10% for our service tax. That's not our money.
We give 40% commission to our nail technician who's doing the work. And even if you're doing this yourself, you're giving this number to yourself. Cost of the actual service, we're going to go $20 per service. How to calculate this, I can also show you in a different video, but let's just say it's $20 for fixed and variable costs, except for admin. And admin is going to be at $33 an hour for an 8-hour day, so that stays the same. So what we're going to be doing, our total expenses, which means we have the total price, our capacity, minus our tax, minus our commission, minus our costs, minus our admin. And we're left with $11 for the whole day, right? Us. So that's our total profit. That should be like this. There we go. So our total profit is this because we've subtracted all of this. But if we take this, right, and multiply it by the number of staff, I'm going to drag this out. Our capacity, obviously, for one day is significantly more. This all grows as well. This all grows. This all grows. But let's have a look at what happens to our profit. And the only thing that changes here is the fact that we have one admin and that cost doesn't grow. So what happens in one day with two technicians is you go from just making $11 profit to $200 profit, right? And if we take that out all the way up, we can see that our profit is going to be significantly more with one tiny change where we have everything is exactly the same as this, except we just have more technicians, right? Obviously, we can play around with these prices. So if you have $100 and we spread that over, sometimes even like $5 makes such a big difference. So see how we change that from 150 to 100. All of a sudden, a lot of techs, and the problem is a lot of techs are charging even less than 100 because they're not specializing in e-file services, and they don't even realize that they're at a huge loss, right? And here, obviously, well, when you have just one person, you probably wouldn't have an admin in the first place. But when you have two people or more, even like having 2 versus 3 people, that daily profit is such a huge difference, right? And if we times that by 30, say for example, we go this amount times 30, let's imagine we have 30 days a week that we're working. Well, let's be more realistic. Let's say 24 days because we want to have some weekends, right? So that's what we're making in a month. And if we're looking at a year, we're going to go this number times 12. So if you haven't planned properly, you're at a $32,000 loss at the end of that year and you don't even realize it. Or you could be making almost $270,000 in profit with 8 technicians, right? And this is just $100 per service price. So this is something that I think is really important that we must do, whether it's just one of us that we're working and really understanding what's behind each of these costs, or if we have a salon of 8 or more technicians. Obviously the numbers do get a little bit more complicated than this, but just as a simple outline to get your head around, this is really good to understand.
So you see, if your current model isn't profitable right now, scaling is just going to really escalate the problem, which is why I was really worried about scaling for a really long time. I had a lot of people say, Lisa, you should franchise, Lisa, you should do this, Lisa, you should do that. But I knew that things are not making sense, the numbers just aren't adding up, and I need to figure this out first. So that's exactly what I did. I dug into my numbers, I understood what was working, I understood where my leaks were, I made small adjustments to fix them, and only then I went on to the next step, which is step 3, and that is systems and processes. So that's when you look at all of the different systems, how everything's done, and you start optimizing. You look, okay, how much time is spent doing this? Do I even need to do this? And how does this affect my end numbers? You can have things like KPIs, even if you're just by yourself, because a lot of the time what we tend to do is we we have this like illusion that like I'm busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, guys. Oh my God, I'm so busy. I have a million things that I need to do. But you just keep running in the same place and you're not actually getting anywhere. So here you need to kind of switch your focus not on productivity but on efficiency. So for example, you can do literally just one thing today, but that needs to have a direct result on whatever it is that you want to get. So for example, if it's money, you don't need to just make a million calls but wait 2 rings and hang up. You need to make sure you actually call through and get a result, like book a client in, or whatever it is that you need to do, right? So measure and hold yourself accountable for the things that actually bring a result, and really like be honest with yourself in this exercise, because I used to be so busy. Oh my goodness, I was so busy, and the result wasn't anywhere near as big as it could have been if I wasn't busy, but I was effective, not productive. So one of the things that I did to become more efficient rather than productive is I had a look at my salon space and I understood, okay, I can expand my capacity by adding in new stations. So I kind of, even though I have the same space, I finally was able to be like, okay, this is how I need to switch things over completely in order to fit more stations in. So I went from 4 manicure stations and 3 pedicure stations to 7 manicure stations and 3 pedicure stations with 2 forehands, with an additional optional third forehand station that I now have. So I have up to 12 stations that are that can be used throughout the day. So that's 12 stations, right? And the bonus for you is, for example, if you have 2 stations, you have a very small space, you have 2 stations, and you can't do anything to fit another station in because otherwise it's going to be like really crampy. There are other things that you can do. For example, you can have the same 2 stations, but you can split shift. So for example, you have one person or you working in the morning, like 9 till 3 o'clock, and the second person works from 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock. That way you're utilizing that one space much more efficiently. The next thing you can do is add more additional hours, of course. So for example, you can open up earlier. So rather than working from 9 till 9, you can work from 7 till 9 or 7 till 10 at night. I don't know, maybe people want this. But again, you can expand, you can add that extra slot in the morning. And the other thing that you can do is to add extra days. So if you're working your salon space is working 5 days a week, you can do all of these things. So for example, you've done a split shift where you have 2 technicians coming in per day. So you're maximizing the amount of maximum capacity in your salon. Plus, rather than having just 5 days a week open, like you usually would if you're working by yourself, you add an extra day in. So this extra day adds such a huge profit in the month and year view, because you have so many different fixed expenses like your rent, your subscriptions, things like that don't change. They come every single month, and it doesn't matter how many clients you do. This is going to really make a huge difference. Like even your rent, it can go from being $5 per client, and by adding an extra day it can drop down to like $3 per client, right? So these things, increasing your capacity, is going to be a huge thing. And only after you've done all of these things, only then can you look at things like marketing and client attraction and things like that. Because if your business is not ready to bring these clients in, there's absolutely no point in expanding. Even if you're in a situation where you are currently working by yourself and you have heaps of clients that you can't service yourself, and you're like, oh, I don't want to say no, so I want to bring someone else in. You need to understand, is this actually going to be profitable for you or not? Because when you bring even one more person on, a whole lot of new expenses get added on, and all of a sudden what your initial model was, it may not be as effective when there's 2 people. if your model's not done correctly. But if you sit down and you do the numbers properly, and I hope that you really, I hope I inspired you with this video to do your numbers, to at least start thinking about your numbers, then you can prevent a lot of issues and problems. Because once you start actually sitting down and thinking, okay, even having like one administrator servicing 4 technicians at full capacity is one thing. Can one administrator service 20 technicians at full capacity per day? I don't think so. So these things you need to start thinking about, and you can do like a play prediction, like play Sims kind of a thing, but in your Excel sheet to see, okay, what if I do this, what's going to happen? What if I do this, what's going to happen? So you literally just kind of treat it like a game, and voila, extra profit, extra turnover, and extra capacity. So this is why scaling, after you implement all of these systems in, is going to make you more profitable, not more stressed out, and you'll be able to actually control the situation because you've already thought about it and kind of predicted everything. This is going to be much, much less stressful for you. And that way you can easily expand, you know how to expand, you know how to grow, you know how to attract, and you know at the end of the day that you're not just multiplying an unprofitable model that you may not even be aware of. And this is something that was absolutely crucial for me, for my business, because if I hadn't done this earlier, I would not be in the situation where I am now, where I have a controllable, profitable salon model, where I've got my baby, and I don't have to worry about, putting out fires and issues happening all the time. I can very calmly, safely know that this is a reliable model, this is a reliable business, that it's given me stability, it's given me calmness, that it's given me, the support that I need. And yeah, it's so important, because no one wants to talk about it, but we all know that you can't do nails with a baby in your arms. Or again, if something happens to you, you need to make sure that you protect yourself in advance. So you don't want to be in like a victim position where you're like, oh, life is so bad, everything's happening, this has happened, I can't do it. You want to be able to be in a grown-up adult position where you think of these things in advance. Yes, it may not be pleasant. Yes, it might be really, really uncomfortable. It may raise a lot of really strong emotions that you may not know how to deal with right now, but you really need to be honest with yourself here and prepare for all kind of options that could happen. Now, in the next video, I want to talk to you really, really specifically about what happens when your income specifically depends on your body or on your time. So for example, if you're physically doing nails, or if you're physically in the salon, you're doing admin, you're doing this, you're doing that, when your time becomes limited, I want to talk about that, and again, how you can save proof and prepare yourself and prepare your business for what if something happens. And what if something happens will definitely happen sooner or later, because at the very least, we're not getting any younger. Now, if you're a nail technician and you're thinking about growth, or you're a salon owner who wants to expand or grow or build that stability, please write your questions, your comments, anything in the comment section, or message me on my Instagram in DMs, and I always read everything. I'm more than happy to answer all of your questions, and it'd be really awesome to get your feedback, to say, what your thoughts are, what are your fears potentially, has this video kind of gotten you to think about something? Maybe you've gotten some ideas. I would love to hear all of that. So please comment, message, and like, please, because I'm growing this space again. I'm coming back here, and it's really, really helpful when you get that feedback, so that you're not just sort of talking at an empty field. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video, and bye.